Intimacy is this skeleton key that unlocks all of those gifts that you have in your people. Hi, this is Jim Young, and you're listening to a special solo birthday episode of Expansive Intimacy. Welcome to Expansive Intimacy. I'm your host, Jim Young, and I'm on a quest to help men like you and me discover how to apply intimacy to unlock new, expansive versions of success in your relationships, your work, and your life. With each episode, we'll take another deep dive into the intimacy toolkit to show you how you can enhance your emotional intelligence, leadership abilities, and relationship skills. So settle in and open up, because it's time to get intimate. That's right, everybody. It is my birthday. The day that this episode releases will be the beginning of another trip around the sun for me. And I thought I would celebrate in style with a solo episode, which I like to do every so often, to talk about expansive intimacy and what I'm learning about it. When I started this podcast, one of my core goals was to learn more about intimacy from wonderful guests, from the conversations that we have, and from exploring the topic from all sorts of different angles, which is really what expansive intimacy is all about. So as I tried to determine what was the subject for a birthday episode of this show, I kind of got into some complex territory, which I am likely to do. And then I realized, you know what, just keep it simple. Talk about something that's birthday related. And it hit me. We're going to talk about gifts today. Now, the number of trips around the sun that I've taken, I am not a guy that looks forward to birthday gifts, opening up packages and presents on my birthday. I'm kind of over that. Yeah, it's fun. It's nice to get a little something here and there. But really, the gifts that I'm most excited about are of a different variety. And today, we're going to talk about gifts from two different perspectives. Because you know what? It's my birthday. And I don't want to just talk about one thing. I want to talk about multiple ways that we can look at gifts and intimacy, because that's what the show's about. For those of you who've listened to some episodes here, you know that one of my core topics is to talk about leadership. Organizational leadership is one of the fundamental places where the world changes these days. We do spend a ton of our time at work. We are heavily influenced by what goes on in the commercial economy. And that's where leaders have a huge, I would argue, maybe even an outsized role. And that's why I want to always be trying to speak to them, because they have such a tremendous opportunity to create positive change in the world because of those conditions. So where do gifts come in? In the conversations that I often am having with leaders, I'm talking about gifts. And what I'm talking about is the native set of gifts that each one of us holds inside of us. We have these natural abilities, these passions, these skills. Maybe it's even a driving purpose for you, that when we get to be in that gift or that set of gifts, we come alive. We do our best work. Things are easy. We don't need to be motivated. We don't hardly need to even be directed. And people can't get enough of what we're providing because we're operating from our gifts. And this is where leaders have an amazing, a massive opportunity to create positive change. Because if a leader is focused on identifying the gifts that live within the people in their organization, and then creating the conditions for those people to bring those gifts about, well, now we've got something. We've got people who are going into work looking forward to it instead of dreading it or feeling burned out by it. And we have them doing great work, producing bottom line results, which is oftentimes the one thing that leaders feel like they get measured by and feel like they have to live up to is the bottom line. And I tell you, the studies are out there, the data is in. Keeping your people happy, healthy, engaged in their gifts, in other words, is the path to bottom line success, as well as lots of other types of success. My partner taught me a phrase a couple of years ago that I'll try to paraphrase. I don't think I ever quite quote it exactly right, but it's that when our greatest gifts meet an important need in the world, we've created something special, right? That's what we are looking for is how do our gifts match up with the needs of the world, right? And this is, I think, a core place where organizational leaders have an opportunity to lead better, to lead in a more inspiring way, to lead in a way that creates connection and happiness and health. And we're going to talk about some of those words when I get to part two of my birthday present today of this episode. So, what does that look like? What does it look like for a leader to help bring about gifts from their employees, from the people that they lead? Give you an example. Let's say you have a person on your staff who is really good at creative expression. They can make things look amazing. They have creative ability that pours out of them. Maybe they pursue that in their after work life. Maybe they even have the opportunity to do some of that in their work. Maybe they're in your marketing department and they're creating digital assets for ad campaigns or something like that. That person is in their gift when they're creating. As an aside, I dropped my son off for college, his first year of college this past weekend, and he's going to an art school. He's going to go get his bachelor's in fine arts. And for what we know at this point, he's going to start off with drawing and painting and printmaking, maybe sculpting, none of which my logical business brain can imagine turning into a full-time benefits, high-paying, fund the 401k, provide for the family kind of job. And I don't care because it might. It might do even better than that. It might do way more than that. In fact, I trust that by him being in his gift, starting early, pursuing the gift of taking this amazing creative ability that he has and developing it, then discovering where it may land, where it may help him create a life that he's excited about. I think that's going to work just fine. And so if we bring that back into your organization, if you're a leader and you've got a creative person on your team, are you utilizing their gifts? Are they pigeonholed into the creative things that they're allowed to do, or maybe not based on whatever their job title is? And what are the ways that you aren't yet tapping into that potential? Maybe you have them working in marketing and sales and producing brochures or websites or whatever it is that you create in that realm. But what about the other ways that that person's gifts could help your organization? What if they had the ability to create onboarding materials for your new employees that were visually helpful for different learning styles that help people understand quickly how we treat our customers, what our policies are, what's the culture in this organization? How can you use creative expression to make that come alive and get people on board faster? For that matter, could you do that for your clients when you onboard a new client? What are the ways that you can unlock people's gifts to connect with the great needs you have to attract and retain great employees, to attract and retain great customers, to deliver amazing service, to fund your bottom line, to be a viable, thriving business that creates more opportunity? Gifts lie at the core of how we can do this. And this leads me into the second piece. I want to talk about the gifts of intimacy. And this is where I always find I need to do a little more translation about what I mean when I'm talking about this thing called intimacy and especially mapping it to the business world. And I've intentionally called this show and the book that I wrote by the same title, Expansive Intimacy, taking the notion that intimacy is this singular way of connecting with a person that is romantic, sexual, physical, and that's what intimacy is. Yes, that is true. And intimacy is so much more. In fact, intimacy is this skeleton key that unlocks all of those gifts that you have in your people. In a recent episode, I had Elizabeth Solomon on the show. And Liz and I go back several years and we talk about things like emotional intelligence and leadership. And we also talk about intimacy and creativity. And we talked about gifts on the show, even though I don't know if we ever used that word. Liz told a story about a project that she's involved with, an organization called Late Night Art, and a specific project that they were on where they were working with an organization, with a leadership team, helping them to assess where they got stuck, where they might have self limiting beliefs, inner critics, voices that hold them back. And in one of these exercises, they used creativity, they used creative expression, they used drawing. People sat across from each other with paper, pens, crayons, and drew pictures of what their inner critic looked like and what it was saying to them. And in that exercise, one of the participants, who was paired up with a CEO of the firm, started to really understand what was going on inside that CEO's lived experience, in their intimate world. She walked away saying that she would walk on hot coals for this person, that her image of this person and what he cared about and what he valued and what he put in to make it the best company possible was beyond what she'd imagined. Nico Booston, who was on one of the early episodes of the show, when I asked him the common question I ask of every single guest that appears on this show, when I asked him, how do you define intimacy? He related a story about how he learned a phrase that is into me, see. Into me, see. As a mnemonic for intimacy. When that person in a workshop sitting there with crayons and paper across from her CEO saw the picture that he drew, depicting this inner critic, this harsh voice that revealed something important about him, it built this amazing trust because into him she saw, into me see. Our gifts are often hiding in plain sight. And when we unlock them with intimacy, with that skeleton key of expansive intimacy, we create possibilities that we didn't know were there. We create opportunities for people to connect to important work. We create relationships where people say, wow, I would walk on hot coals for you. I am that committed to supporting your success, our success, because of intimacy. Intimacy is not one dimensional. I don't even know how many dimensions there are, and I've been studying it for years. When I asked some of my other guests to define intimacy, they talked about things like connection, emotional, physical, and intellectual. Those are a few avenues. How do we create the spaces where we can be emotionally and intellectually intimate? Physical intimacy seems like it doesn't belong in the workplace, by the way. But if somebody comes up to you on a particularly hard day and in a very appropriate way puts their hand on your shoulder to say, hey, is there anything I can do for you? It's a moment of physical intimacy in the workplace. And also, by the way, it's emotional intimacy. Letting people know we care in ways that are appropriate to the workplace. One of my other guests, Newton Chang, shared a key element as well that comes alive in Liz's story to some extent, but I didn't hear the other half of it, but I have to imagine it was there, that reciprocation is a key element. Opening ourselves up to share this broad range of shared moments, as Mike Sweeney called it. Being truly honest with ourselves without fear, as Brian Anderson described it. Being fully present in all different contexts, as Elizabeth Kristoff said. And the ability to feel safely connected, to feel oneness, as Kate Donovan described it. These are all ways that we can start to understand the immense power of intimacy. In our personal lives, yes. And I hope that you are experiencing plentiful personal life intimacy with kids if you have them, with friends, with a romantic partner or partners, whatever your lifestyle might be, that you have places where you can share your excitement and your joy. You can go get relief for your fear and your stress and your worry. And I also want you, on my birthday, to take the gift of intimacy for yourself and bring it into the workplace. And if you're a leader, I want you to share that gift with as many people as you can. Because when we do that, we not only create the kind of organization we want, the kind of culture we want, the kind of business that we want, but we create real healing with each other. And that would be an amazing birthday gift. All right. So thanks for listening to today's special birthday episode. I have one last request. I want you to take 5 seconds, close your eyes, and reflect on today's episode. And who did you think of? Who did this episode make you think of that maybe they could benefit from hearing it? Would you share a link with them? You could help me expand intimacy even further. And that would be amazing. All right. Thanks. Until next week. Hey, thanks for tuning in today. I really look forward to seeing you next week on Expansive Intimacy with me, Jim Young. I'd also love your help with expanding intimacy even further. Will you take a minute right now to rate the show and write a review? It's the best way for us to bring more people into the conversation. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time.